Fantastic. Thank you, Becky. And thank you everybody for being here for today's CSBG quarterly call. I appreciate it. We are going to start with some logistics. We've all been on Zoom for a while, so I'm sure we know how it works. Please keep yourself muted unless you have a question, and then you can come off mute, or preferably use your little hand icon, raise your hand, and then we'll get to you during the course of the call. And you can always, of course, put your questions in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. Otherwise, the call will be recorded, which is fantastic, and we'll do a quick land acknowledgement. So the Colorado Department of Local Affairs building itself is situated on the traditional land of several indigenous groups, to include the Sioux, Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. Additionally, our reach extends throughout the state, covering the traditional lands of various other indigenous groups and cultures who have stewarded this land throughout generations and continue to do so to this day. We acknowledge and express respect and gratitude to those people and are committed to continually working to create a long-lasting, non-extractive, and supportive relationship with Native people throughout Colorado, as well as repairing past wrongs whenever we can. So we will jump right into today's call, CSBG quarterly call. I'm going to start with some CSBG updates, and then the Colorado Community Action Agency will also join us as well. Thank you so much, CCAA folks, Josiah, Liz, and Jessica, for being on the call, along with Becky from the state office. So I will pull up my handy dandy PowerPoint slide here. It's very fancy and high tech. So to start, we're going to talk about Q3 and Q4 option letters for CSBG. Basically, OCS has released a Dear Colleague letter saying that those funds will be released. They released that on April 12th, I believe. It's linked on this slide. So they will be releasing those funds soon, and hopefully within just a couple of weeks of them doing that, I will have the option letter for quarters 3 and 4 available in your grants portal for drawdown immediately. I will say every year we have the fun question of whether or not the 1% is also going to be released at some point. So while this is all of Q3 and Q4, and it should be the vast majority of all CSBG funds for this program year, there still is that 1% hanging out there that OCS may choose to release at a later date or not. Generally that happens in the third or fourth quarter. So if that does happen, there will be another slight bump to your CSBG award for this year. But for now, that's most of what will be allocated at this time. So you should be seeing that before too long. Spending plans. Thank you to everyone who has already completed your spending plan for the remaining federal fiscal year 23 funds. And those are due April 28th. And you can complete the form at this link in the presentation. Some folks have already spent those funds down completely, and if you did, you should have received an email saying that you're basically exempt from the spending plan, because the intention is to really give us a good proactive look at any entities that may have a little bit more funds left than they could potentially use, and to be really proactive and strategic about how we address that so that we can hopefully get as much of the CSBG allocation into our communities as possible, really serving people and alleviating the causes and conditions of poverty as we are wont to do in the network. Next, I wanted to provide a little update on the state plan goals. So the last state plan that we completed was for the period which ended September of 2023. And so I'm working on submitting a new plan now for that federal fiscal year 24 and federal fiscal year 25 state plan, since Colorado is one of the states that does a 2-year state plan instead of a yearly state plan. So before we jump into the new one, I kind of wanted to update on the last goals that we had in our last state plan. And they're listed here. And so the goals themselves were to develop an understanding of the role of the state office in promoting more equitable programs and services, streamline state processes and requirements, provide support, training, and technical assistance in developing community needs assessments, and develop resources to increase org standards compliance. So I think we've done a fair job of accomplishing all of these, at least to an extent. I will say I certainly have sort of a continuous improvement mindset with these goals, and I don't think that they'll ever be completely done as long as I'm in the role, but I will certainly continually work to progress in all of them. So in order to address equity, we've been undergoing a lot of trainings, both at conferences and individually on various Zoom applications. I participate in the equity committee for DOLA, and have done a couple of trainings in that regard as well in the region, and potentially here now on the national level as well, covering everything from racial equity, inclusion, diversity. And so I think we're continually striving to really understand how to make the program more equitable, both internally with our services as well as externally with the support that we provide our eligible entities, and then subsequently, the support and services that you provide folks in the community. So we've really appreciated the participation, the active participation of a lot of eligible entities and staff in some of these equity trainings. And we, see a lot of the efforts that are being made at that level as well. So I will say, I think nationally, Colorado is really centering equity in a way that is notable. And I appreciate everybody's participation in making that happen. As far as streamlining processes and requirements goes, this was a huge part of our recent undertaking to overhaul the program implementation manual. Although, some parts did end up longer than they were originally. Hopefully that does help in really ensuring that expectations and policies are clear, so that there are fewer questions and fewer, there's more continuity, so that if you ask, if multiple people ask the same question, they can hopefully go to the same source and get the same answer. So hopefully we have done what we can to streamline the requirements. And again, that will continue going forward. And we are striving to provide excellent training and technical assistance in regards to the community needs assessment as well, to include the webinars that we've done, the resources that we try to publish, and our templates, and then of course the regional forums that we have coming up that I'm sure Josiah will touch on as well. We're really going to try to have a hands-on, one-on-one approach to ensuring that the community needs assessment is not just a box checking exercise or additional extensive work that everyone has to do, but there really is an impact behind that exercise, and that it serves the eligible entities and communities well in the end. And then developing resources to increase org standards compliance. I will say a lot of eligible entities are really fantastic with org standards compliance. And I think we can also, as a network, go to make great strides in continuing to increase how effectively we really do those things. And that's high on the list of priorities as well. So thanks to those, we know it's a lot of work, right? There's 50 something standards. And so it's not going to come easily. So thanks to the staff who have previously and continue to, increase your own efforts to get that compliance number up, because we know it's a significant ask. So that's kind of where we're at with our last goals. And I will say, I think, so part of, I'm going to move forward to the next slide here, and we'll talk about the 24-25 state plan. So that's the new plan that I'm developing right now. It's going to be due to the Office of Community Services from the state office in September of 2023. So I'm working on a draft right now of the updated state plan. And I will say, I emailed about it a little bit ago, because part of what we get measured on at the state is ensuring that all of our eligible entities have the opportunity to really have their voice heard in the state plan process. So like I mentioned in my email previously, if anybody here would love to, really dive into the state plan document and figure out how it works for you, if you have any suggestions, recommendations, honest, candid feedback is always very welcome. We do great work, and we have a ways to go in some things as well, and I'm aware of that. And so I'm super open to what the network has to say as far as improvements that you would love to see in the program. So I will have a draft. I will send it out for feedback. If anybody has initial thoughts before the draft is even complete, of course, you can email me at any time, but it is important that I hear what everybody would like to see in the state CSBG program. So I have some rough goals outlined at this point, but they're not in stone yet. And of course, the equity piece is going to remain on there probably forever and always while I'm here, because when we're talking about issues of poverty, I think ensuring that we address it really equitably and acknowledge sort of what got us to this place in the first place is key to really, really effective solutions. So increasing equity at every level is going to be on there. What that looks like, we will see. Open to suggestion, but potentially some discretionary awards to grantees who are really making great strides in equitable programs and things like that. Thank you for the state plan template that you dropped into the chat, Josiah. Always the fantastic co-presenter. I appreciate it. Of course, we're going to look at organizational standard compliance and resources as well, which includes a lot of things, streamlined or revised or improved resources that we can provide to make it easier for you, additional communication about it, as well as probably some more hands-on training and technical assistance for entities who can really use the extra support, because in part, organizational standards compliance has a lot to do with the process, right? And so once you have your process every year really, really nailed down for how you ensure a base level of compliance, you can continue to build on that. So helping some folks get those processes in place, our own internal processes and procedures at the state to include documentation to ensure continuity, so that if as staff turnover, there are consistent understandings of the program and policies in place, as well as procedural documentation so that we know what we're doing on our end, and then more effective monitoring processes. Because I know for me personally, that's something that I'm really striving to improve, and I have a long way to go. So thanks for everybody's help in all that. And of course, as you have suggestions, let us know. And Josiah said, hopefully maybe some online system improvements around the org standards review will help with that too. Yeah, absolutely. Everything org standards. I feel like that's the big one if we're being very honest. So between that and all the other things we have going on, we're going to strive to make some significant improvements in how we manage the program. And I hope that is impactful for everybody. And I welcome everybody's feedback. And then finally, speaking of the organizational standards, thank you for everyone who accommodated our cancellation of the last organizational standards training. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to reschedule it so it's closer to this adjusted due date for the annual for the organizational standards. Because when we were thinking about it, having the org standards due before the updated community needs assessment, community action plan, and application didn't necessarily make sense because it wouldn't be the most accurate and up-to-date picture just 3 months later. So in order to really ensure that it's a valuable reporting tool for everybody and that it encapsulates the most up-to-date information, we scooched the deadline for the organizational standards submission in the THO system to November 15th. So that will now come after the application, community needs assessment, community action plan, and those updated documents and policies and things can be used for the next organizational standards assessment. And then it'll give us hopefully a really accurate, up-to-date picture of where everybody's at and where we can most plug in for additional training and technical assistance and support. So hopefully that's good news that you have a little bit more time to work on that very daunting task that we have to do, that is the organizational standards. And it's my hope that, by analyzing the most recent stuff, we're really doing our due diligence and our part to ensure that the process that you undertake is as effective as possible, on the whole. And we don't take for granted how much work that is. So that I think is the last that I have. I know that was a lot. Thank you. I'm a fast talker. Does anybody have any particular questions for me before I hand it over to my co-presenter at this time? Okay, well, if any come up, anything pressing, feel free to drop it in the chat, or if it's offline matter, of course, follow up with me in an email, and I will, of course, summarize all this in an email, along with all of the presentations and resources that we're sharing today so that everybody has that after the fact. With that, I will hand it over. Thank you so much, Josiah.
Thank you, Alex, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining the call today. I'm actually going to send it over to my colleagues, Liz Espinoza and Jessica Roshan, to talk about the VITA program as our first agenda item.
Thanks, Josiah. I appreciate it. Our VITA season is wrapping up today. Today is our last day of the season. So we are very excited about that, especially our coordinators who have been working tirelessly this season. We were able to submit over 6,000 returns as of March 31st. So we are really hoping to reach at least 8,000 by the end of today. We're going to be continuing our efforts to open new sites as we can. So that's going to be a huge focus for us. And we're, of course, going to be increasing our efforts for those that are eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit, as those are not just important to the IRS, but also to the governor's office. So those are main focuses for VITA. And Jessica's done a wonderful job working with our coordinators to help their volunteer base. And we are really excited to hopefully bring in some new volunteers for this next tax season. If any of you know of any particular areas that are looking for VITA sites, we are happy to meet with people and go out and see if we can get new sites set up. So that's something that we're going to be doing over the course of the summer and fall. So if you have any ideas, feel free to reach out to us via email or through the coloradovita.org website or our own website, coloradocommunityaction.org. Jessica, is there anything that you'd like to add?
The only thing that I want to say, thank you, Liz, for providing that update. I just want to really express the wonderful volunteers that we have that are making this program possible across the state. We did reach out and ask sites to let us know of volunteers that have been with their program for longer than 10 years or more. And the amount of volunteers that came through that have been with the program for over 10 years, up to 20 years, is just remarkable. So very grateful for all of those people that are out there doing the work and making these direct impacts across the state of Colorado.
Jessica. And that is all for us on the VITA program. Josiah?
Well, thank you both, and I'll send out a big thanks to our VITA partners and all those volunteers as well. It's such a wonderful program. So if anybody, again, is looking for more information or would like to talk to us about setting up a VITA site, please do reach out to us. Wanted to let you all know that the CCA Board of Directors is conducting a strategic planning process this year through Coddy Consultants that will result in a new 5-year strategic plan for the association that will be adopted late this year. We would love for all of your input in this process and into the strategic plan. We have a board strategic planning committee that is set up that is working with our consultants and with us staff to create some surveys and interview templates and to start reaching out to you all to give us input on what the association, what our efforts and our focuses and our priorities should be in line with the mission statement that we work under. So really excited to start this process. It's been a bit of a long time coming, and we hope that you all engage us, our committee and our consultants in this planning process, and reach out if you have any questions or if you have any thoughts on that. And as a side note, I'll just make mention that the National Community Action Partnership just released its new strategic plan last week, and you can access that online at their website. And it's quite a good, interesting read, and really does provide us with a pathway forward for our national network of community action. So Alex mentioned the regional forums that are being worked on and coordinated. We're really excited to release the schedule and the locations. This is all subject to change. Some of these have been confirmed, and we are just finalizing setting up the registration process now. So as we get the registration set up for each of these sites and dates, we will be reaching out to all of you in those areas and inviting you to invite your staff, your tripartite board, certainly, and your key stakeholders locally for these regional forums. And the point of these, the real focus of these regional forums is going to be, how do we move from looking at assessing our communities and our population served and looking at resources in the community to moving on to community action planning specifically, and also how do we measure our performance and set up systems to be able to tell the story of our impact. So really this is meant to be all of yours opportunity to use this summer to start moving from your needs assessments that hopefully you all have started and are moving through to the community action plan, which will be required to be due to the state on October 31st, along with the next 3-year application, and how you can be sure to set yourself up to be really successful in measuring your impact around what you plan to do. So these are going to be really great opportunities for you all to meet with us collectively, the state office and the state association in person, have some good food hopefully, and be able to network a little bit. And also to be able to start to really work through this process, which we know can be daunting. And we're trying to put as many resources together as possible, both online Training wise, if you haven't checked out the needs assessment presentation, please do check that out as you are going through that process. It's available both on DOLA's website and the CCA's website under our needs assessment webpage, which also has a ton of other resources that you can tap into for this process. And we really would love for you to open this up to your community. We think that any folks that are working in organizations that are public facing can probably benefit from the agenda that we're putting together and that we're hoping to walk through. And it's really going to be a lot of interactive pieces of the day that we're going to be working through. We're also looking at putting together a couple of virtual regional forums so folks could attend and go through the agenda that we're putting together online. So we'll be releasing that soon as well. DOLA partners, CCA staff, anything to add on the regional forums?
Nope, just thank you. It's a lot of work putting that together, so much appreciated.
Well, along those lines, one of the things that we're certainly cognizant of as we move forward into this application process is that you all, to meet organizational standard 4.3, need a national certified Roma trainer to be involved in the process. So this is really having a Roma trainer in Colorado, hopefully, provide feedback on several products and processes as you go through them as appropriate. Certainly the needs assessment that you're working on and the community action plan. If you're reviewing your mission statement, feel free to reach out to one of us Roma trainers right now in the state that are at the state association. It's Liz and myself, and then Alex from the state office. Jessica's going through the certification process now. So hopefully late 2023, Jessica will also be able to provide this type of feedback. But we're building out a special hour at the end of the regional forums that we're conducting for you all to be able to get some of this feedback in person if you would like. And so we'll work out a process, but it'll be likely you providing us with whatever you'd like feedback ahead of time so that we could do a little bit of review and be prepared to discuss it with you. And then setting up a time at the end of that regional forum to discuss whatever product you would like some review on in person at that time with the NCRT Roma trainer. We'll also set up a process that you could do this through email and get feedback, perhaps through a Zoom meeting or some other form. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to get this feedback, but we also wanted to offer the opportunity to get feedback in person because we know that's really valuable. And I should make note that, Rand Clark is the other nationally certified Roma trainer in Colorado with Douglas County. Really appreciate Rand fulfilling that role, especially locally. We try not to bug him too much with this outside work, but I'm sure he's always happy to answer questions if appropriate as well. And there's a question on if there's a link for the regional forums on the website. Yes, there is not available yet. We're working on that. We should be building out a web page for that probably over the next week or two. So thanks for that question. Alex spent some time talking about the organizational standards 2023 review, as well as the major emphasis on improving our overall compliance with the org standards as a major component of the next state plan and our current state plan. We will be emphasizing that later this year, and so you'll start to hear more and more about that. But thought it was a good time now to remind you all that we have this really great document that the CCA put together that has most of the standards in one place, broken out by how you might address those standards in your board meetings. And so this, I think 6 page, because it's broken out over if you have 2 meetings per year or if you have 4 meetings per year. And like I mentioned, that most, if not all, the relevant standards are covered in this. So if you're looking for a way to maybe start to work through the process of making sure all your standards are in place and you're in compliance, you can look at this. And if you have some board meetings left in the year, you can work these standards into your board meetings and make the required actions in the board meetings or in the board minutes or board agenda to be able to meet those standards. You'll notice in this reference resource here that we try to make note of what needs to take place or what needs to be documented or how it needs to be documented in board minutes or other pieces like board motions for each relevant standard to meet the wording of the standard. So please do, if you're using this document, take note of that guidance there because sometimes a standard requires, for instance, a motion and an approval that's officially noted in the minutes. So if that's the case, you want to make sure that takes place in a tripartite board meeting that you have taking place between now and November. Any questions or comments on the org standards? And a friendly reminder that we do have CSBG 101 trainings available, tripartite board orientation, CSBG intents and purposes training that we can do via Zoom, or if you all would like and we're able to, we can do those in person as well if it's works out. So please do reach out to us and let us know if we can do any of that. So question on where do we find the document for the guidelines to meeting the standards? Tammy, if you're referencing the document I was showing on my screen, that is on the CCA website, but I think it's buried somewhere. So we'll get you the link. Maybe one of my colleagues can grab that link real quick and put it in the chat and so that you can have it and make note of it. And wanted to make note that we do have a CCA Board of Directors meeting on Friday, May 12th at 11 a.m. via Zoom. So if anybody's interested in attending that, please do reach out and we'll get you signed up on that Zoom meeting link. And just another note for the chat folks that are talking about that link, it's going to be in this PowerPoint presentation, so it'll be available to you. That'll come out after this meeting, and maybe Becky can put the link specifically in that email as well. Thanks for Alex for dropping that in there. And then we wanted to provide some space and time for folks that have attended recent national meetings to provide recaps and discuss any major themes or anything that they believe we need to have on our radar as we're moving forward. And those recent national conferences that we can recap on are the National Community Action Partnerships Management and Leadership Training Conference that took place, I believe, in early February in New Orleans. The National Community Action Foundation Legislative Conference that took place a few weeks ago in March in Washington, D.C. First time in person since the pandemic, which was exciting. And then the NASCAS Midwinter Conference that took place in Arlington, Virginia a few weeks ago. So I'll go ahead and let you folks that attended those jump in and provide any recaps that you might like to provide.
Way to leave it open-ended, Josiah. I love that. So the only one I went to recently was the NASCAS conference, and kind of circling back on the equity theme. I think that's part of why I was so confident in including equity as a theme in our upcoming state plan, because they had some really awesome sessions specifically related to equity at the NASCAS conference with OCS staff there, higher ups from all levels, and it was really inspiring. They talked about establishing stronger connections with our tribal organizations and tribes in our areas as a path to increased equity. And I think it was Karen from Washington, who's been with the CSBG program for a couple of decades almost, who said that she's never heard the Office of Community Services or a federal office even speak so candidly about equity, especially racial equity, and that it seems like they were really making great strides in that. So that was really encouraging to me, and part of why it's just very clear that it should be embedded in the Colorado State Plan, because we want to take that energy forward as well. So that was my big takeaway. And thanks Jessica and Becky for being there as well. Out of 24 maybe participants, 3 were from the state of Colorado, with Jessica and Becky and myself. And so I think showing our commitment to equity on that level to our federal partners is a big deal. So thanks Jessica and Becky for that. So that's all I got.
Anything else from the NASCAS Midwinter Conference we should discuss or highlight? I'm seeing some shaking heads. Okay, so Liz, I know you went to the National Community Action Foundation Legislative Conference and also the Management Leadership Training Conference. You want to give us a brief update on either of those?
Yeah, I can give you a quick one. And I apologize if I freeze. My internet is very unstable right now. So the Management Leadership Training Conference in New Orleans was absolutely fantastic. It was my first time being there, and I was able to connect with a lot of people that I have connected with in the past, but I was able to bring back some really good techniques and tips for working with us. And I'm really hoping to get those up on our website also. It was really great. And the NCAF conference, it was my first time being in DC. And it was super informative. I got to kind of learn a lot about the process that kind of goes on there with meeting with some of our elected officials. Unfortunately, some of our meetings were canceled, so we are working on rescheduling those. But we were very excited to be there and very excited to have that opportunity just to let everyone know in DC that what we do here and how much CSBG benefits our communities. So I'm really looking forward to being able to do that again and really kind of spread that information around to our elected officials and really let them know that this funding does make a difference in our community. And so that was one of the highlights of my trip, was really kind of having that opportunity while we were in DC. So thanks.
Thank you all for your time and travel to those conferences and providing us with some recaps. Anybody have any questions for our group that have went to national conference, or anybody on the line that has went to a national conference that would like to provide any information about your experience? Seeing no one unmute themselves or raise their hand, I will move on. We'll talk more about national conferences here in a moment, but I think you're hearing from folks as they recap that those are really powerful, impactful things for them to experience and to attend. And I think always the networking is one of the things that you can't replicate really in many ways when you attend those. So more on that in a minute. Alex. Yeah, Alex, thank you. It sounds like we had a good showing from Pueblo staff at the NASCAP conference as well. It's wonderful. I got to say, the NASCAP conferences are a wonderful way to really understand from an eligible entity perspective what you need to do from the state perspective, which is valuable. So we wanted to highlight that we've arranged with the Department of Regulatory Authority, or DORA, a Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act and Civil Rights 101 training. We've been doing this the past 2 years, every year in the spring, as a way for you to offer this to your staff and tripartite board. We've noticed in our monitoring visits that when we go through non-discrimination or anti-discrimination training in our monitoring visits, that oftentimes there isn't much access to those types of trainings. And DORA staff are wonderful in the CCRD division, really willing to do this training on our behalf. So really excited to offer this. You can sign up for this Wednesday, May 17th, 1 to 2 p.m. training through the link that you'll get in this PowerPoint presentation. And again, please do share this with any relevant staff or your tripartite board, certainly. And it'll be a great overview of the various anti-discrimination laws in place that we have to work towards. And here are some other trainings and conferences coming up that we want to have you all be aware of. The CCAA is working on our scholarship budget now for the summer and fall, and we anticipate having funds available to support you all or your stakeholders, such as your staff that are involved with CSBG, certainly your tripartite board members, to attend any or all of these conferences as we have budget for. The Cap Law 2023 annual conference, you all know that Cap Law are our national legal representatives and association out of Boston. really a wonderful annual conference, going to be in Austin, Texas, June 27th through the 29th. I believe we do have both state office and state association, as well as a couple eligible entity leadership staff going to be attending that. So look forward to a strong Colorado contingent, but please do take a look at that. And if you have any interest or any of your stakeholders do, you can complete the scholarship application on our website and we'll get that reviewed through our board scholarship review committee. The WIPFLE 2023 Stronger to Serve Conference, July 10th through the 14th in Las Vegas. Really always wonderful material that you get in WIPFLE presentations and trainings. Really encourage you all, especially those that are on the financial side that have to think about uniform guidance and how to properly make sure that you can show that your activities are allowable, allocable, and reasonable and meet that test. The WIPFLE stuff is always wonderful. So encourage you to take a look at that. The National Community Action Partnerships Annual Convention, August 23rd through the 25th in Atlanta, Georgia. Always a wonderful, wonderful training and conference event. The networking is pretty much unmatched at this conference, and really encourage you all to consider attending this. I believe we have both state office and state association, as well as CCA board and some eligible entities that are looking to attend this, but we would love to have more. So please do reach out if you're interested or any of your stakeholders are interested in this. And of course, we are providing Roma trainings. Right now, we have some introduction to Roma training, virtual training scheduled. We have these scheduled on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Wednesdays from 9 a.m. to noon Mountain Time in June, August, and October. You, your stakeholders, your community partners, really anybody that's interested can sign up for these on our website. And we really look forward to having these Roma trainings. We'll schedule more virtual trainings moving forward as we get a little bit further into spring and into summer. And if anybody would like an in-person Roma training, we just did our first one since February of 2020, yesterday in Granby, Colorado at Mountain Family Center. Thanks so much to Helen and her wonderful staff for hosting me for that great training, and looking forward to hosting many more in-person trainings as we move forward as well. So reach out for us to schedule those with you and your community. And I think that's it for our slides. Any questions or comments from any folks? Alex, should we spend a second talking about linkages?
Yes, absolutely. Why don't you start, Josiah?
Well, I think one of the things that it wasn't on the state plan slide, but we've been talking about on our side is trying to bolster our linkages work, not only locally, but at the state level as well. We're always working on linkages. I think you all see that. But one of the specific things is we were thinking about potentially bringing back some of our key linkages programs and having a little bit of maybe a short presentation, a little bit of question and answers around what's going on in their respective areas or in their programs, and maybe looking at doing that in a quarterly call or potentially separately in separate Zoom webinars that we schedule. So I just thought maybe we could grab some early feedback on if folks might be interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that up again, or for the first time in this call. We talk about it so much that it's a recurring theme at this point. So yeah, absolutely. If folks have thoughts, you can either unmute, raise your hand, drop something in the chat. I know for me personally, as a fairly new CSBG state manager, the concept of linkages is one that is still a little bit nebulous. And I think I hear that feedback from a lot of eligible entities even, and at various levels, that what linkages even are, and certainly how we do them specifically in the state, is not super clear. So that's actually a really good point. And I will probably add that to our state goals for next year, is to really go down the path of really sort of starting to document and strengthen our linkages at the state level, because it's definitely something that is a continuing project for us. So I think it would also be a fantastic goal to really do a good job of understanding better internally and communicating it outwardly as well, sort of what we're doing at the state level. So yeah.
And just a little bit of more historical perspective on this, because I do know we have had quite quite a bit of turnover since this conversation took place within our Colorado network, but we used to carve out 10 to 15 minutes in every conference call and have usually a state partner, like our weatherization partners over at the Colorado Energy Office, or it might be, you know, the Head Start division over at Human Services, provide a little bit of an overview of important topics that they're working on, and then do questions and answers. And at the point when we were asking about how these conference calls should run, there was pretty good majority feedback that wasn't something that folks really wanted in these conference calls. So that's why we removed that at that time. And certainly don't want to put it back in there if you all aren't interested in it.
Yeah,
at least in this venue. Yeah.
Maybe an email that people can choose to ignore. No. But yeah, we're always open to what folks want to hear, what you want to learn, any mysterious concepts such as linkages. And we'll continue trying to get you that information in a way that works for everybody, that you can consume as you would like, and that is valuable for your management of the program and understanding of CSBG at every level. So, alrighty, and I will say I meant to open with this at the top, but thank you to everyone for your annual report submission. Tammy said, could you find what activities count as linkages in our programs offered through CSBG? They seem to change, or maybe in another meeting. So yeah, Tammy, I think that's a great place to start with the materials that we do put out, right? Linkages at the state level are one thing, but I think when you talk about it at your sort of local eligible entity level, it's different, right? It's the connections that you make in your community with other agencies and things like that. Do you want to add anything to say?
Generally, we tag something as a linkage at the local level when you can't really put it in a very clear definition of one of the domains. And as you mentioned, Alex, it's almost always community level work in many ways. Otherwise, if it was internal, it'd be considered agency capacity building. Fine, difference there. So we would look at it as if community level work, and you can't tag it as just a housing thing strategy that you're working on, or an income and asset building strategy. It kind of goes across to multiple domains, and that's how we generally look at linkages locally. But I think we're open to hearing how you all might define it, because I don't think we have a clear definition from our national down approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Linkages are what we make them. Fantastic. Yeah, so, and we can further clarify that, add examples, etc. in future communications. And I will say thank you to everyone for the annual report. We did get it submitted. My initial submission was done the 31st, and as a new manager, I had a couple things I had to go back in and tweak for it to be really done. But I appreciate everyone making it possible for us to submit and show our national partners that we have our stuff together and that we are a capable and effective network. So thanks, Becky, for the shout out. I appreciate it. And thanks, everybody. We know the back and forth with the feedback is sometimes a cumbersome process, and it can be tricky to really understand how the data interacts in such a way that we really get the accurate sort of picture that we need to convey. But thank you, everybody, for your continued work. And if there's things that you're particularly confused on or need additional support, or just know maybe isn't the most clear concept or whatever, reach out, let us know. And if we can improve the process in any way, again, of course, let us know. We know that it's a lot, and I want to continue being more effective and efficient in the training and technical assistance that we provide, so that folks feel like you have a handle on the process. So thank you so much. Much appreciated. Colorado continues to be exceptional in that regard. So, and when we say Colorado, we mean you all. So thank you again. If you have any questions or comments, feedback, dad jokes, I love a dad joke to put on the roster for our internal meetings, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we will see you all soon. Thank you so much.